So, like I said, I'm an Uber driver, so legit, I'm always in my car. So I'm gonna do this video while I drive. Maybe not safe. I'm not gonna be looking into the camera. You're just gonna hear my voice. Like I said, I want to touch on suicide loss. So I really want to talk about my journey. So as some of my, subscribers know, my only sister committed suicide September 15th, 2017. And I kind of want to talk about beginning to end of how I felt. And this may be a long video, but trust me, it's going to be worth the watch, especially if you're a person who's in a suicidal place. I really recommend that you watch this if you're in a place where you're contemplating the end of your life and wanting to end your life. So I'm kind of going to go over like that day and maybe prior. So I want to touch on a little more on the suicide note as well, because there's a lot of vague subjects in that video. So she talks about 5/16/16. That is our mother who died. Our mom, she was misdiagnosed with a cold, like on a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, she went to a doctor again, and they said allergies. So by Friday, she was at her job, and they begged her to see a doctor and have someone pick her up. But my mom was like that stubborn ass Italian woman, strong, does things on her own. So she drove her ass home. And on Saturday, my sister finally got her to go to the ER. I meet up with them at the ER, and she has such bad pneumonia that her entire right lung is just done. So they put her in a medically induced coma. And from there, it just wasn't good. She first developed, I believe, kidney failure. And they had her on dialysis. And a few hours later, we're in the waiting room in the ICU. Now it's heart failure. And a few hours later, it's all of a sudden sepsis. And me and my sister looked at each other and we knew she was done, because that's what our father died of. And, a few hours pass by and the doctors come in, and I'll never forget those words. And I never thought these words would be said to me. You all need to prepare yourselves. And that's really kind of a hard pill to swallow when a doctor says that to you. And they explain that she's probably never going to come back. So they explained that we had to take her off of life support. Now it's me, my sister. Meanwhile, my brother's in rehab, and I'm all night calling the rehab, please let me talk to somebody. I need to talk to my brother. Our mother is dying. About 8 a.m. was when they finally let me talk to him, and they had someone rush him right to the fucking emergency room, or the ICU, where my mother was. So, and I'm gonna just ramble, so just try to keep up. So it's me and my sister, a lot of my cousins, and we're all sitting in my mom's room, and she got a private room. And we're all sitting there in hysterics as they're basically pulling the plug. And I might get a little emotional talking about this, because it's still a really touchy subject for me. So they pull the plug, but when they pull the plug, Michelle, my cousin, who now has custody of Reagan, who I speak about in that video, is my niece. And Michelle says to Anne, who is my sister who killed herself, you have to tell her she can go, that it's okay, that she can leave. And my sister kind of repeats that to her, and I'm telling you, not even within 2 seconds, it was flatlining, and my mom was gone. And that was just the beginning of my grief journey, and I think that was a big contributing factor to my sister's suicide, because she lived with our mother until the day my mom died. She never flew the coop, she never got married, nothing. And throughout the months and years or whatever, because my sister committed suicide about a year and a half after my mom died, basically 2 weeks after her birthday. And you just could see by her Facebook posts, just by her face, I could see it was going to happen. I would beg her, can you please go see a psychiatrist? Can you go to some support groups? Can you please go help yourself? And she's like, oh, I don't like the side effects of pills, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, it would be better than being dead. And I point blank told her I was afraid she was going to kill herself, So when September 18th rolled around, I was doing a training, like 2-hour training shift at this job at this like famous bagel store down in Freehold, New Jersey. And obviously my phone was on silent because I really want to focus on training and being a good employee. So it's 10 a.m. My shift's over. I get a coffee, I get a bagel, get my purse, sit down in my car, you know, take a look at my phone, and there's like 45 missed calls and like 30 missed text messages, and like I already knew what happened. So I called my boyfriend at the time's grandma, and I don't know if I was in hysterics, I can't really remember, but I definitely was like shocked because I knew. And I said, Ann committed suicide, I know it. So then I started to go down the line of phone calls, and none of my family members would tell me what's going on. They just said, Chris is on his way to get you, and please don't drive. But finally I talked to my brother's best friend, and I'll never forget those words when all I said was, what is going on and why is everyone calling me? And he said, Ann is gone, she's been found. My sister, they think she killed herself on September 15th, so she had sat in her house for a good solid like 3 days. And how she was discovered was like, Ann was very flaky, and I was used to that, like not answering texts, not answering phone calls. But my brother got very concerned and called the apartment complex maintenance, hey, can you go check on my sister? And that's where they found her. And so she used the form of suicide. I really don't like to mention it because it puts ideas in people's heads, but it's not like you can't find it on the internet, and it's a method I've never even heard of. And I've dealt with suicidal demons since I was 13 years old, and I'm surprised I've never heard of this. It's called an exit bag. It also can be called human euthanasia. It's many other things, and I forgot. It's where you put a drawstring bag over your head, and they sell a kit to do this on the internet, which is like infuriating that they're teaching people how to do this on the internet. And I understand it's geared towards the terminally ill, but depressed people are getting their hands on this, and they're killing themselves in the thousands and millions. Okay, and so you put a drawstring bag over your head, and there's like a hole in it, and you put a tube through it, and you connect that to a helium tank, and it's basically asphyxiation. It's like a painless form of suicide, but from what I understand, it's not very effective, because I've read a lot of forums where a lot of people fail. But from what I understand, it also, you're unconscious in 30 seconds and you're dead in 3 minutes. And so that's how my sister went out. And so Chris comes and picks me up at my job, and I just fall into his arms, and I'm hysterical, and he makes me park my car a little farther away from the store because we'll come pick it up a couple days later. And so we make the treacherous journey from like down the shore all the way up to North Jersey, so like about an hour and a half. On the way there, a sheriff called me and apologizes and sends his condolences, but he just had to tell me that my sister killed herself on a tarp on the floor, because my sister was such a good-hearted person. She wanted to donate everything, and I don't know, and like he just talked about like the process, and you know, of getting the note and getting her phone, etc., etc., etc. And so we finally get to Parsippany, and we pull up to Ann's apartment, and you know, Michelle, my cousin Doreen, my cousin, my mom's best friend Bonnie, and my brother and my brother's best friend are there. And I'm at the point where I think I can't cry anymore, and I'm just in disbelief. And you know, everybody's hugging me. You know, Michelle automatically pulled my phone out of my hands and said, I'm calling your doctor. And so she calls my psychiatrist, and she says she needs an immediate appointment. She needs some help right now. You know, I took a Xanax because I was prescribed Xanax because I obviously was in an anxious state. And so we called the maintenance guys to come and open Ann's apartment because, you know, the police are gone, the coroner's gone, everything's gone. And it's just me, my brother, Chris, my ex, and my brother's best friend who go up first. And it's like no one's ever been dead in that apartment. It was beautiful just how Ann kept it. Ann was kept things immaculate and organized. And we walk into her bedroom, and there's 2 pictures on her dresser, which I'm assuming she was holding when she killed herself. It was a picture of her late mother and her niece, and then her and her niece. And I immediately like started rummaging through her drawers. And I go into the living room and rummage through more of her drawers, and I find her will. And right there and then I knew this was in the planning for a significant amount of time. And I read it, and like I'm just dropping to the floor, like repeatedly, like. And what pisses me off the most is my cousins knew there was a will. Me and my brother didn't. Had we known, we would have intervened. I don't care. I would have thrown her ass in a state psychiatric hospital if it meant to save her. So Will's like, I got the majority of her stuff, but the other stuff was donated to like charities and et cetera, et cetera. And I know I'm not necessarily off topic, but I'm just rambling. That's because I really want to dive into this and give details, because I know I have some pretty loyal followers and I really appreciate them. So just the days after that, going to plan her funeral, leading up to her funeral, was just a whirlwind of driving from South Jersey to North Jersey, South Jersey to North Jersey, to plan funerals. And I'm on the phone 8 hours a day having to say, my sister killed herself, my sister killed herself, my sister killed herself, to 100 fucking people a day. And it was literally like swallowing razors every time I had to say, Anne committed suicide. It was like pouring acid down my throat. And it came to a point where I just couldn't say it anymore, and Chris took over and started calling people and answering phone calls for me. You know, and the funeral rolls around, and I'm just hysterics, disbelief again. And it really quite wasn't until the whirlwind of before like her death into the funeral, where the dust kind of began to settle, and you really realize what happened, and you decompress a little, and you know, you sort through your head of what happened. And it got to the point where I sat on a couch 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 weeks, and didn't talk. I didn't sleep. All I could do was cry. I didn't shower. I didn't do anything but sit there. And I'd say about 3 weeks after Anne's funeral, you know, I was just making a post on Facebook, because I am very personal on Facebook, and I talk about my grief journey, and I talked about whether people think I need to check myself in. And my big sister, if you know of the program Big Sister Big Brothers, said, honey, you need to go check yourself in, because I described what was going on with me. So I sleep on it. I sleep on the decision. And in the morning, Chris leaves for work, and I said to him, I'm leaving with you to work to go to the emergency room, because like, if I don't do it now, I am never gonna do this. Sorry, I'm gonna park real quick so I can get a little more attentive to this video. And like, so it was like 7 a.m., 7:30-ish. I walk into the hospital, and I remember and I don't. Very vividly, I walk in, and I'm very quiet about it, because I don't really want the whole world to know I'm having a psychiatric emergency. And I walk up to the desk, and I'm like, I'm having a psychiatric emergency. And I'd say within a minute, there's about 4 people surrounding me. And this is the last point I remember. I remember just dropping to the floor and screaming at the top of my lungs that I want to die with my sister. That I just want to be in the ground with her. And I must have blacked out, because they had me in the psychiatric holding. They were obviously going to hospitalize me, because I wanted to commit suicide, and I said it right in front of them. And all I know is Chris said that the nurses would not let him see me. They constantly said to him, you do not want to see her like this. This is not a state that you want to remember her as. And I'm sure I got put in restraints and all that shit, but that was probably the single worst mental breakdown I've ever had in my life. And, you know, it just doesn't necessarily go away. Like, I just downward spiraled from Anne's suicide. It was like I had just healed from my mother, and I feel like someone just knocked the wind out of me, and I couldn't breathe for a good solid 8 months, maybe even more, and I'm just starting to catch my breath. Like, I remember wanting to kill myself so bad for so long, and just the guilt would choke you alive. And like I always said, I wish I could have saved her. I wish I knew, yada, yada, yada. And like, and a lot of people, like, I quit my job after that, and I got unemployment and all this stuff. And like, this guy, Chris, turned out to be extremely abusive, physically, mentally. And I remember at that 3-week point, he got a fight with me because he was sick of seeing me like that. And he said, why don't you just get over it? And that was a very big contributing factor to me never really healing from my grief, because I just was in a downward spiral. And now I'm kind of in a comfortable place to work on my grief. And my grief has just been awful. It's just been the lowest of the lows I've ever been in. And I just really want to touch on the suicide loss. I'm like, if you're thinking of committing suicide, like, I don't mean to sound like you don't matter, but like the aftermath, it goes on forever for all your loved ones. Like, there's not a day, not a second in the day that I don't miss Anne, and that I don't wish she would have fought, because I'm still sitting here and I'm fighting and I'm persevering so much. And I wish she could have been like me and my mother and my brother and fought. And like, there's never a reason in this world to kill yourself, because trust me, I have tried. I am an attempt survivor, a severe attempt, like in a coma attempt survivor. And like, to this day, there's not a reason for me to kill myself. And I'm going through serious shit still to this day. And like, I don't want to kill myself. And you know what? I don't love myself. So I stay alive for my best friend right now, because I know I don't want him to know what it feels like to be a suicide loss survivor. So I sit there and I say, today I'm going to stay alive for him. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to stay alive for iced coffee. You know, shit like that. And like, it's pretty awful. And I don't know, I'm kind of done with my rambling, but I hope you guys actually watch this whole video, because it answers a lot of questions you guys had. Alright, love you all, and I'll see you next time I feel like making a video.